Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. 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 Testing, check, check. Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. I don't know why I'm echoing. I don't know why I'm echoing. Testing, check, check, 1, 2, 3. Sorry, I was having some technical difficulties there. This is a very stupid reason why it was echoing. But it should be fixed now. Welcome to the Ninja Robot Studio LLC stream, where I play video games and VR experiences and talk through them from a UX designer's perspective. Game development has a heavy and direct influence on XR development, so it makes sense that we would study game design to give us a better, greater understanding of how to design quality, immersive experiences. And the plan is to have all of you in chat participate, and that way we can learn together. There are a lot of classes out there on UX design and UX processes, and more classes are coming out around designing for XR. And think of this as kind of an unofficial and less academic and less expensive university labs class for UX for XR. We're going to use critical thinking in our design analysis, and my goal is to help you gain experience, practical experience in this method as you participate in the chat. And if you check out the widgets on my About page on Twitch, you will see that there is this section called Rose, Thorn, Bud, and we'll be using this method each session to think through the games that I play. And it is experimental, and I'll learn and iterate on this format as I go, and with y'all's feedback. So now, each session, if there's anything following up from last session, I do have something from the last one, was on Kokoro Clover, which was a Japanese game, 2D platformer game in the retro style. And we had talked about pixel width for text elements on a screen, body copy, because if your body copy is too wide, it makes it hard to read, because you need to be able to, your eyes need to be able to follow the next line and carry over to the next line so you can continue reading. But if your text width is really wide, then that means you have to come all the way down and then come all the way back over here to find the next line. It makes it slower, and it makes you lose your place more quickly, and so it makes it a much slower process to read something than it would if you made the body copy more narrow. And that's why you'll see on a lot of pages, let's see if Moss does it on their page. Yeah, you'll see that their body copy is much more narrow than the full width of the page, and that's because it's a lot easier to read body copy that's more narrow. Now, there is too narrow, and that makes it hard again, but there's a nice balance of that, depending on how much body copy you have. You don't want, well, I mean, I guess it's on the phone, it's fine, but there are balances depending on the width of your page on how much width you want the body copy to be for aesthetic reasons and for easy legibility in relation to the width of the page. So I had mentioned that for web and for like digital screens, like our traditional 2D screens, the ideal width, max width for body copy is 600 800 pixels, and that's when you're dealing with your 2D screens. But with XR, we don't necessarily use pixels as our measurement. We use meters, centimeters, because that's what the tools that we use to create the things use as a unit of measure. So in that case, we're going to not be using pixels, unless of course you're designing things in Photoshop or something. But you're gonna have to like have your resolutions are going to be varied depending on the device that you use and depending on where you place this stuff in space. If you're creating signs and things like that, you might want to, it might be a better idea to follow poster and signage best practices for your XR panels, depending on their placement and the size. So it all depends on your context, but you're going to have a mix. It's not the same in 2D, because in 2D you're just looking at a screen like we're looking at here and here. This would say, I would say, make it a max of 800, and 700 is a nice a nice compromise there. But in XR, you're going to follow poster and signage best practices, depending on where it is in relation to the viewer. And another follow-up question was, did it actually teach about the spirits in the tutorial where you can change the spirits to use different powers? And I just didn't notice it. And I went in back and I looked, and it showed how to pull up the menu, but it didn't explain anything about changing the spirits up or anything. You would have had to dig through and look at everything to see. So, and it didn't compel me to do that. It didn't say it would be important to do that or not. And that was, again, one of the reasons that I wasn't able to finish the boss fight, because I didn't have the patience to figure it out. They didn't teach enough for you to make it through the boss fight. And then we ran out of time. So, and I also want to thank Kamil Wanzek. If I am pronouncing your name incorrectly, I really apologize, but I'm grateful to your comment on YouTube, adding some more roses and thorns to our Kokodo Clover. I think it was Kokodo Clover as well, so I appreciate that. I will add those, and we will see them in a couple of weeks when we're doing a report on all of our platformers that we've gone through. It's going to be a special stream where instead of playing a game, we're going to work on a report, so you can see that process of me synthesizing that information into a final kind of, well, it's not so much a report as is our final board. It's a mini report, notes that you could take to write a report, and that's what we'll be doing in a couple of weeks. So that will be included in there when we get to that point. And thank you very much for that. And before each session, we go quickly over for review so that we can think about it during the session. We go over the pillars of gaming UX, and those are from the Gamer's Brain book by Celia Hodent. I highly recommend it. As you can see, I've been reading it quite a bit, and I'm still reading. I just keep reading the same stuff over and over again, but it's so good, because there's something that you get that you don't catch every time. So, good book. I highly recommend it. And she came out with a new one recently that I haven't had a chance to read yet. I think it's called Gamer Psychology or something like that. But it's also around the psychology of gaming. Which I'm sure I will recommend it once I get a chance to read it. But you can check it out. It's available now. It's another print book. So the usability and the pillars of gaming UX that she's written about, the usability pillars for those that are from a product design, UX design background, or people who've been on teams that have done heuristic valuations, you will recognize these are basically the same as Nielsen's heuristics that you would review. However, here there are 7. She's modified them slightly. She and I'm sure a bunch of other gaming scholars, UX scholars, have modified these slightly to fit gaming. And that's also going to have to be done for XR. I have my own best practices that I've written on that, and Nielsen has come out. I think they've come out recently with some heuristics of their own specifically for XR that I need to go review. I haven't had a chance to yet. But the usability, there are 7 that she has here. Signs and feedback, which is all of the visual, audio, haptic cues, things like that help you know what to do, where to go within the game, to guide you where you're going in the game and tell you this is where I go next and so forth. All of those things, the game should have those things, first of all. Informative sides that encourage the players to execute specific actions, inviting signs, and then feedback is the reaction. What happens when they do this thing? They need some kind of feedback to let them know that it worked. A simple example of feedback would be I click on this post-it, and the feedback is that I have locked this group of post-its in place so that I can't move them. And the feedback that's telling me that is that it's a gray outline, and I've got this lock here saying long press to unlock. So that's feedback, because it's telling me I can't move this or edit it because it's locked. Can I edit it? Nope. Because I double clicked on it and all it did was zoom in. So no, I can't until I unlock it. So that's feedback. And all of the features and the possible interactions in a game should have signs and feedback associated with them to let you know what you can, can't do, where you can go, so forth. And then clarity is around all of those signs, all of those feedback, the typography, the contrast, the visual, the colors, everything should all work to bring clarity to the design and to what's going on. The feedback should be perceptible and clear to avoid any kind of confusion. And they should also be perceptible but not intrusive to the gameplay. And they should be able to quickly prioritize information in context of what's relevant right now, what's not relevant right now in the game. And form follows function is the form of an item, character, icon, and so forth should accurately convey its function, its meaning. And this is where we get into affordances. So a chair affords sitting, a doorknob affords turning, things like that. So that is affordance. A cup, like the cup handle affords, this is how you pick up the cup, and so forth. And it should intuitively inform people how to interact with something. Consistency is consistency in expectations, consistencies in certain kinds of designs, and so forth. For example, the world rules, the menu navigation, things like that, there should be consistency, and there should be some kind of design pattern consistency, like enemies look a certain way, like most of the time in MMOs and so forth, an enemy will have a red symbol or something above their head saying this is an enemy, whereas your allies will often be green, and so forth. And they'll have some kind of accompanying symbol for those that are colorblind to say, yeah, this is it. Like Final Fantasy does aggressive enemies versus enemies that aren't aggressive but will fight you if you attack them, and they have symbols and signs that are consistent to let you know this is the type of enemy or a friend or whatever that you're dealing with. And this also has to do with the overall mental models, like your regional controls, your gaming mental models. Like right now we're looking at platformer games, so there are certain things that people expect with platformer games. There's like, for example, there's going to be some kind of puzzle that you have to solve to get up and move around the platform, and you're going to have to figure out how to get up and so forth. So that's something that people expect in a platformer game. And we recently did tabletop RPGs, and so there were certain mental models for that. And that's what we're talking about as far as consistency. You want to understand the mental models of the game if you're creating a game, to understand what the players expect. And a great way of doing that is to play the games and to watch the users play the games. And that's going to give you the most information. And minimum workload is your cognitive load and your physical load. And you remember I mentioned earlier about that reading, how depending on the width of the page, if I make this page wider, the text isn't going any wider. It's staying at a max width, and that's for easy legibility. And what would make this a bigger workload is if the text were set to the same width as the window. So anytime you widen the window, the text would go wider, and that would be a bigger workload to try to read in that point, because it's taking longer for your eyes to move from the end of one line to the beginning of the next line, and that's unnecessary workload. So you want to minimize that workload, and there are design best practices to help people do that, and that's what we were talking about earlier with your max width of your body copies to make it easy to read. And physical workload is another thing. How many button clicks, how cumbersome is something to do. We want to minimize that without hurting the mechanics of the game. So if it has to do with the game, then fine. There needs to be a balance there. But if it's cumbersome just because it's a poor UX decision or a poor UI decision, that's avoidable, and that's not necessary for the game. That could actually get in the way of people enjoying the game. So that's what we're talking about workload. And also cognitive workload. You don't need, unless it's I know there's a game called Memory where you have to remember the card that something's under, and so you figure out which are the matching pairs based on your memory. That's a game. However, when your UI is set in a way that it's not clear, so that you have to play memory to remember where in the menu certain things are because it's not clear, that's not the game. That's unnecessary poor design that can be avoided by making a clear, well-designed menu, if that made sense at all. And players should be able to focus on the game mechanics or the features or the content and less on the interface and the interactions that are needed to do it. The interactions and the interface should not get in the way of what they're trying to do. They should not be cumbersome or overly complicated unless, of course, it's a part of the game mechanic, part of the challenge. And error prevention and recovery is we want to anticipate any kind of errors that the player will have that aren't game related, that aren't game mechanic related, and try to avoid them and give them a way of escape if it does happen, a way to correct. Like, for example, leaving without saving. Something that happens quite a bit. You can leave a game and lose your 2 hours of play. How can we prevent that from happening? Autosave is one option, and another option, I would say, do both autosave and give them a way to save if it's been a while since autosave happened. So if they try to exit the game, a common thing would be a pop-up window saying, "Are you sure you want to leave? You're going to lose you may lose game time." One of the annoying things, though, that I see often in games is when you save and then you start to leave and it'll say, "Are you sure you want to leave? You're going to leave content. You're going to lose content." There should be some kind of, if possible, some kind of logic in the pop-up to say, if they just saved 2 seconds ago, don't do the pop-up. Just say, "Are you sure you want to leave? Yes, no," without saying you're going to lose data, because that can be confusing if they just saved. But that is a little pet peeve. It's not a huge issue, and at least for me, I have not done any kind of usability on it to see if it's an issue for other people. But that's what we mean by error prevention and recovery. Let them back out. Did they mean to exit? They may not have meant to exit, because sometimes the menus are not clear, and you'll have an exit or where you think you're exiting the menu when you're actually exiting the game. There needs to be clarity on what, and you can do that through certain types of testing to make sure that people understand what the words mean in your menu and make sure that your menu is clear on what's going to happen here. Is this going to close the game, or is it just going to exit the menu? And then flexibility is around what are your options in the game, how much can they customize the game. And this is for accessibility and many reasons, for regional language and so forth. So how flexible is your game for people? Because a lot of people playing your game may not have English as their first language, or whatever your native language is their first language. You want to give them options to be able to understand the game as much as possible. And yes, it is more costly to make it, to regionalize the language, but it is worth it if you're wanting to, especially if you're wanting to make an international game. You're going to need to do that. And that goes for audio levels, adjusting your sound effects versus your voice versus your background music and so forth, because different people have different sensitivities in hearing. There are people with hearing difficulties, so if the background music's too high, they won't be able to understand what the person's saying, even if the person is very clear to anyone with healthy, perfect hearing. There are going to be people who have issues with that. I have issues with that. Even though I do have good hearing, I have some kind of sensitivity that makes too much noise hurt my ears, so I have to adjust the sound for that. And you want to give people the flexibility to be able to do that so that they can enjoy your game to the best of their ability. Accessibility options, can they add switches or things like that if they have motor function impairments and they can't use a normal controller? Those kinds of things are going to make it better for everyone and give more people the opportunity to play your game. and adjusting it, font sizes, colors, and things for people with color blindness issues, things like that. And then there are 3 additional pillars that she talks about as far as game specific, and these are pillars of engageability, and they're around your motivation, your emotion, and the game flow. And the motivation is you want to satisfy the player's need for competence, autonomy, relatedness. What is the intrinsic meaning behind what they're doing? What's their motivation? The sense of purpose. What is the value of playing this game? What do they get out of it? And you want to offer meaningful rewards to the player, things that they're actually going to benefit from and that they know that they'll benefit from. And not just things that are going to benefit you. And I see that a lot in the free-to-play games, where if they have a certain pricing, you still have to make money from your free-to-play games. A lot of companies do, but how they do that can be annoying or it can be compelling, and you want it to be compelling, not annoying, because people will stop playing your game if all you care about is them pushing the buy button on something in game. So what is their motive for doing that? You want it to be meaningful to them, not you as the game maker. Otherwise, you're just going to push them away. And that's happened to me recently when I downloaded a free-to-play game and it kept pushing me to pay for stuff. And I just, okay, uninstall. I'm done. Because it was so annoying. So you want to think about that when you're creating your games. For the player, it's not about the money. It's about the entertainment and the reward. And then emotion is the polish of the game. How does all of this come together to give a certain mood, a certain tone? How does it make them feel? What is exciting to them? What is, do they have a sense of presence in the story, in the game? That is the polish of the game to enable this feeling of emotion. And then the game flow is how the game flows from end to end. What is the level of challenge from the beginning, and how does it slowly increase over time, or do you make it very difficult at the beginning? What is that game flow? What is that difficulty curve, the pacing, the learning curve for doing the game? There are best practices around that. You want it to start easy so that they can learn, and then slowly add in increasing difficulty as they go. That's the difficulty curve. So if it's difficult right away, less people are going to be inclined to play it. They're going to be then. Depending on the game and depending on your target audience, of course. That's why you want to research your target audience to understand what motivates them. And those are the things that we need to keep in mind as we're playing each game, and then afterwards we will do Rose Thorn Bud and discuss how that applies to XR. And we do need to cut the stream a little shorter today than I'm used to, because I have something at 2 my time, circuit stream talk. So unfortunately we do have to cut it shorter than usual today, so I'm going to try to increase the pace this time. But today we are going to be playing Moss. I had mentioned a few weeks ago that this is a PlayStation, this is a PSVR. I have it on the PSVR. It is a cross-platform game. You can get it on, I think you can get it on Steam. You can get it on the Quest. I have it on the Quest, but I have the original Quest, which you can't. You can stream the video, but you can't stream the sound from the original Quest. So there are workarounds, but that requires technology that I don't have the money to pay for right now. So, and then I had it on PlayStation VR, but I didn't have, and that also required technology that was costly that I did not have. So I wasn't going to be able to play Moss for you, but now I can, because a friend, a very, very generous friend, gave me the technology that I needed to stream from my PlayStation VR to here. So now we have it set up, and I can do that now, and I'm very, very grateful to that friend. I don't know if they wanted me to call them out or anything, so I'm not going to say their name, but I very much appreciate it, and it has opened a whole new level of opportunity for me to be able to stream games for you, because I have a lot of games on my PlayStation. So that's where I started when I got back into gaming because of this understanding that gaming teaches us all kinds of things to translate into XR, which is one of the reasons I'm doing the stream in the first place, is to teach you this. Gaming highly influences XR design, and we can learn a lot from games. And so I started out with the PlayStation VR, so I didn't have a PC, and I didn't want one. I have one now out of necessity. I didn't want one, so I got the PlayStation VR. It's my favorite, actually. I love the headset. It's the most comfortable of all of them that I have tried. For me, other people disagree with that. I think it has to do with head size. I have a very small head, so it has something to do with that, probably. But it's lightweight, and I love it. So I can play for hours in that one where I can't in any of the other headsets. But anyway, I'm very grateful to the friend who sent the technology that I need to stream from my PlayStation VR. And so now we can play Moss, which is, in my opinion, one of the best VR platformer games out there. Period. And we're going to look through it today. And depending on, there's so much to talk about in this game, depending on how much time we have, because we only have about a half an hour to play before we have to start doing the Rose Thorn Bud, because again, unfortunately, I have something on that I have to do, so we can't do it all today. But if there's more to say, then we can pick up next week. Otherwise, we're going to play another game on the PlayStation called Ghost Giant, which is another platformer, which we just want to study different ones to see how people have solved the problem of VR platformers, XR platformers. I can't do any on mixed reality, obviously, because I don't have a mixed reality headset. Otherwise, we would. But we can at least do VR. And this is a highly, highly, highly recommend. If you buy one VR game this year, buy this one. They have come out with a sequel, Moss 2, but I have not played it. I'm sure it's awesome. I haven't played it. I don't have it yet. But I don't even know if it's out yet. Has it been released yet? Let's see. Is it even out yet? It may not be out yet. Oh, it is on the PlayStation. Okay, so it probably just came out. So there is a sequel, and I will get it one of these days. But this is a very good immersive story platformer puzzle game. And you are accompanying your little friend here named Quill. She is an adventurer who's out. She's a curious little adventurer, and you're helping her along her way. You are a guiding spirit helping her along her way. And it tells a story of the history of their village and of their people, and then you help her on her journey to solve this problem that's happening. And you get to heal her and protect her, and here you are. You are this guiding spirit, and they do an excellent, and we'll see it. But you are going to be. There's combat. There's puzzles. There is platforming. So it's a good mix, and they do a brilliant job on it. So we will bear with me while I switch to VR, because I have to adjust sound and stuff. And all the settings in OBS. And I'm going to have a confounded setup here for the mic, because I can't use my Yeti because you won't be able to hear me. So I don't have a lav mic or anything, so I have to have a weird setup for it so that you can hear me. Testing, check, check. I love this headset. It gives you room for your glasses. It's the best headset ever so far, in my opinion. Now this one is a little bit different because it's using the normal PlayStation controller instead of the wands that come with the PlayStation. But it works. How they've done it works very well. It's not a problem at all. And you'll see, as I'll try to explain while we play, why it works. It's different on the Quest and on the Steam because you're going to be using a normal headset with your two controllers, and it behaves differently. And that's where you get into cross-platform game design. So if you have a chance to try them on the different platforms, I highly recommend it. However, on the PlayStation, instead of using the wands, it uses this standard controller, and they've translated it to each platform. I've only played it on the Quest and here, and they translated it very well onto each, and they've done an excellent job of cross-platform design. I'm assuming that it's going to be the same on the Steam, giving them the benefit of the doubt there, because I don't want to buy it yet again. I've already bought it twice. But it works very well. And so this is you. You're this sphere. And notice when you get close to the book, the design changes. Right now we're in a classroom library area with this intriguing book in front of us. And when you get close, I'm not touching anything, it changes to signify, and there is a haptic feedback in the controller, lets you know something's going on here. Whereas if I move it to anything else, that's not interactable, it's not going to do anything. But there is haptic feedback, and there is a sound that I hear, and you can see that there's a change to the sphere. It glows more, and the book changes. And so I'm using my trigger buttons. I'm just using one trigger button to open the book. And when you move close to the page, you can see it turns.
Your time has come at last, dear reader. While we began this tale long ago, we hope it is yours to finish. But this story is not yours alone. No, it is tied to another. And the journey you take together could change the fate of both our worlds. Shall we begin?
And as you can see, that is a very common problem that I've had across pretty much every game that we played so far, is auto-progression of the story. Something that is detrimental to... Can I go back? No. I wish you could. But it let me start the game by opening the book. And now, as you can see, it's not progressing the story. I have to turn the page to progress the story. So I'm going to turn the page.
They called it the Cinder Night. What came from those dark, starless skies would change the world of Moss forever. The peace that had settled across the land was broken by an unconquerable nightmare. And that night, the animals nearly met their end. First, they killed the king. A winged creature broke from the shadows and plucked him from his royal bedchamber high atop the tallest tower. Next, the serpent Sarfog and the armies of the Arcane tore up from the underworld. They ravaged the castle in search of that which gave the king power beyond understanding, one of the fabled glass relics. The King's Guard fought bravely, but the castle soon pulsed with the arcane's evil. Every room was gutted, every statue, tapestry, and adornment hexed. But the glass was never found. Even the reclusive sprites set aside their differences on that fated night. They sent a great champion, empowered by their own glass relic, to challenge the serpent and its steel army. Meanwhile, Sir Argus, commander of the King's Guard, led the survivors west through a temple long abandoned by their ancestors and far away from their newly risen enemies. It was an arduous escape. Finally, after passage beneath the impassable mire, they found refuge in a clearing hidden safely in the trees. Argus charged back to join the sprite champion at the mire's edge. Together, they fought back the arcane and sealed the temple passage that led to the clearing. But the champion was gravely injured. Clutching his glass, he retreated deep into the forest where he drew his last breath. A large tree grew upon him. It stood many years in watchful duty, safeguarding the glass and awaiting its next hero.
And here's the transition into the immersed story. I love that whole animated storybook to give you the history.
That hero, albeit an unlikely one, did arrive at a time she'd be needed most. Quill was out adventuring beyond the edge of the clearing. Dusk was creeping in, but she wondered what she might find if she went just a little farther.
So they're using spatial audio to get you to look where they want you to look. And you can see that I'm not moving at all. I'm set in place. All that's moving is the world. There's little things in the world, not the whole world. The ground is stable.
She was not exactly sure what she roused, but she felt no danger from the beings silently peering down at her.
And that's how they embody you in the story.
Quill had to hurry. The village gates would soon close, and night would follow.
And this is how they onboard you to teach you how to interact with things in the game. They showed a ghost controller, which matches mine, and says use the joystick. And there's so much to say about this. One thing is, so the character is not attached, the motion is not attached to the viewer's camera. And that was one of the things that was causing issues with me with motion sickness, was if this were attached to, say, if I moved while Quill's moving, I would be getting very sick right now because I'm immersed in this world. And one thing that's, and so since I'm staying very, very stable and still, I'm not moving at all, I'm not getting sick at all here. This is an excellent design for a platformer. And I wish they'd do this in 2D games too. It's not as necessary in 2D games, but I do get sick in the 2D games. And one thing though that they used to, I remember them at one point teaching me to click on the X button to go up to jump. I think, but they could just be using a PSVR mental model here to teach me how to jump. Because the X is what you always use to jump in a lot of, not always, but in a lot of games on the PlayStation. X is what you use to jump, so they may just be assuming that mental model. I'm not sure. I think they changed the design of it. Okay, and so here's the hint now. We've got a puzzle to get her from one point to the next. So now it's telling me to use both controller, and I'm feeling a haptic feedback on the controller, and it's telling me use both triggers to grab this thing and pull. Okay. But how do I get her from there to there? And so you can peer around things, and here is an excellent solution for when the character is occluded. Instead of changing the camera view, it's making her glow, so I can see through the 3D object to her to see where she is without moving the camera. So I know where she is. So let's see. Okay. I think they changed this a little bit. Okay. Oh, okay, maybe not. My memory is just wrong. Okay. So we've got another puzzle. We have to get her up there. But I mean, this alone is enough to say, hey, this is, okay, we're done. First scene, excellent example of a platformer. And how they solve the problem of being able to see behind here without changing my camera view. Okay.
Night, her uncle often warned, was when danger was most present. But Quill preferred the stories of the magical creatures that woke to protect the forest.
And you see what she's motioning what I need to do to continue the game, which is adorable. She's pointing at me and then pointing at the thing and saying, pull it, which is NPC behavior, giving you hints on how to play, what you have to do next if you get stuck in the game. One thing that I do have a problem with is I'm very short, so I have to move a lot more than they're assuming most people would. So now I have to figure out how to get her over there. How do I get her over there? Ah, that's the hard part. Sorry, Quill. It's too touchy right here. Okay. Now. I think I need to move it again. Yeah. And the reason that I'm facing away from the camera is because with the PlayStation VR, it's set up with a set camera that's in front of me. Where is she? Oh, there. I wasn't taught that yet. It's going to be taught later, how to use her little sword. But this is a mental model in a lot of adventure games. You break the stuff to get stuff from it. And now I have to figure out how to get up. Let's see. So I've already played this game a little, so I've already done some things. It's not letting me completely reset it. But there was a scroll up here on this ledge that I collected somewhere up here. And now that that's done, that has made the door start glowing to say that's what I need to do next. So I have to open the doors because she's not strong enough to do it. And you can see the scene transitions are fading in and fading out. And I'm staying very still. I'm not moving. The world is not moving. There are things in the world moving, like the NPCs, and you can hear water. You can see smoke coming out of chimneys. You can see particles in the air. And you can see water moving. And sometimes the plants will blow in the breeze. And that's it. And so you have motion in the air, in the world. And that's it. And so I don't get sick. And it's a wonderful, brilliant way of doing it. You don't have to pan the camera. You don't have to make the character move artificially to have a great immersive experience. This is working very well, and of course I'm embodied in this story because I'm the spirit. I only have limited ability to help the character. Little baby mice. And there's only so much I can do, which is part of the story. I have constraints that have been put on me as a spirit. And you can see that they're emulating motion, so the whole body of water is not moving because that would also make me sick. But you can see ripples in the water that emulate motion, and you can see that way that there is animation indicating waves, and you can see the ripples there indicating that there is motion, but this body of water is not moving, because if this whole body of water was moving, that would make me motion sick. And so they're just using small elements of motion to give the feeling of motion without the sickness, which is an excellent design. Excellent design for motion sickness. We are about to have to stop because, again, I'm low on time. And now we have a puzzle to get her across this bridge. And the little, I don't know how we do that. How do we do that? Oh, it's up there. Okay, it's up there. So how do we get her up there? Yeah, she's telling me where to go. And I can't just jump up here. She's pointing at the wheel, so I have to use the wheel. And again, we've got a little bit of motion here. You can see splashing water and stuff. And the wheel's turning, but none of the rest of the wheel's turning. So I hate this part. Oh. Ugh. Oh. How do I get over there? Ugh. Oh. Is that? No. I don't think she's tall enough to jump there. I think she has to go up here. Yeah. She's not tall enough. Ugh. Yeah. What time is it? Yeah, I'm gonna have to stop now. But, so, this is, I mean, there's enough showing just here to show you how completely well done this game is as far as a platformer that doesn't make you motion sick. And it's compelling, and the little NPC is so well designed that she's telling me what I need to do, so there's not a bunch of text in the air breaking the immersion. I did have text here. Let's see, in the settings. This is their menu. So this is, I'm just using the D-pad to move, so they have options for, I had the subtitles on. Which is what you were seeing the text in the air before. They are defaulted to off. I turned them on to see what it was like. How did they handle the subtitles in the game? I think they did a good job handling them in the game. They're not stuck to the viewport. They're in the environment. They're out in 3D. So that is a good placement. There a lot of people who don't know a lot about VR design, good VR design will stick things to the viewport because that's what you do in 2D games. So they just did that, and that's not a good design because it makes it too close to your eyes, and it makes you want to cross your eyes to see it. It's too close; it causes eye strain. So placing the text out in the world is the best way of doing it. And so they do a good job of that. I just wanted to check that, and then they do have options of several languages here, and subtitles in case. But let's see. But it's this. Are these the same languages? No. So they have a little bit more options in subtitles, which is good, and maybe they'll add more in the future. But one of the ways that they save things is by chapter. So by each scene, ish is a chapter, and so that's how they save the game. And they also, you can actually save it, which we don't really need to do. We've covered onboarding because it teaches you as you go, and the NPC tells you if you get stuck what you're supposed to be doing, or gives you a little hint. She can't talk, but she'll give you a hint. So I think it's a good amount covered, so we're going to have to go ahead and stop because I do have a hard stop today, unfortunately. So that is a good place to stop for now. And let me switch everything back to the computer now. Okay. I think we're back. Okay. So let's go through a rose thorn bud exercise real quick. Okay, so good things. There are so many good things. Let's see. And this is something, so the rose thorn bud, let me talk about that real quickly. The rose thorn bud exercise is a really simple method that you can use for quick summarization, for quick exercises in critical thinking. There are different methods you can use. This is one of them. So one I use a lot because it is very simple, and it is good for gathering quick little snippets of information that I can use later to synthesize into something else as needed. So the roses are the things that went well. What did we like? What was a highlight of it? The thorns are things that didn't go well. What was the low point? What did we not like about it? And then the buds are what can we do differently? What can we do differently next time? What did we learn from it? What opportunities do we see? And what follow-up questions do we have? And this, by separating them out distinctively, it is helping to, it's very beneficial to separate these things out so that you have clear, definitive, these are the good things, these are the things that aren't so hot. How do we fix that? And the reason for that is that I see that, and I've done in the past, and I see a lot of designers doing, is they intermix everything. They just flow of conscience right out what's good, what's bad, and that's good in the moment, but at some point you need to synthesize that into definitive things so that you can see patterns and you can see things. And I'll show you again in a couple of weeks. We're going to do an exercise where I synthesize everything we've done so far for platformers, so you can see one of the reasons I like to separate things out, and the reasons that I like to use post-its instead of just writing in a document is to keep the points simple and short, to the point. Because when you need to do rapid synthesis, it's a lot easier to get the key point out. Now, this is not for if you're doing a whole huge, you do use different methods for different things. And so our purposes here are quick analysis and learnings, important to highlight learnings. Now, if I were doing an in-depth research study, there are other methods that we would use. There are mental model methods. There are from Indy Young. There are tons of other methods that would be used that are way more in-depth, that would use research software and tools to highlight, and it's very in-depth. And that's not what we're doing here, though. We're doing something quick and simple to get rapid results. And it's a different kind of study that we would do than There are different reasons for doing the different things, and so I don't want to ignore those and say that those aren't important, but there are different reasons for doing those that are more in-depth studies of studying a problem, trying to solve a problem, and understanding what's going on in a space. This is not that. This is just quick critical thinking, but it's still a very valuable method of doing that. So what were some of the things that went well? They let me start. They let you start game instead of auto starting. There is the ornate book sitting on a stand compels. Is that two? Nope. Compels you to want to open it. Which is how you start it. And talking about, you go at your own pace by turning the pages in the book. As opposed to auto-progressing, which is what most of them do in the initial cutscene, which is not what you want to do in VR. For many reasons. Like, you saw how long it took me to put on the headset and get situated and everything. If you just auto-start the thing, the experience, they could still be setting up and they won't be able to. They'll miss something important if you just auto-start it. You need to let them start at their own pace and initiate the start of it. And I'm writing in current state because I'm writing in present tense because this is the current state of the experience. It's a little mental thing that I do. I prefer to do it this way. A researcher could probably explain to you why we do it this way, why it's a good idea to do it this way. I can't really. It's just something that I've been doing, that I've learned to do. I don't know why, but I think it's subconsciously telling me this is the current state of how things are. It's not a past tense. It's not how it was. It's how it is. And that helps me think in those terms of this is the current state of it. But someone else can probably explain that a lot better than me. Can you go at your own pace by turning the pages in the book? Animated storybook is a good way to handle a cutscene without getting sick, without causing sickness. Like a past tense. It's a past. Well, it's a cutscene of the past. Well, of any cutscene. It's a good way to handle any cutscene. Because I think we saw trying to do this as well. They had an animated storybook. I'm wondering if Polyarc got their inspiration from Trine. I'm not sure, but I noticed that similarity very quickly. And there's so much good stuff. Let's see. More good stuff. It's a clever way of embodying clever embodiment by making you the spirit guiding Quill. And you can see reflection in the water for added embodiment. And let's see, the motion is handled well. Only small elements move while you stay stable. And they do an awesome job of sound used to create mood, which is always important. See if sound effectively creates sound is used to direct attention. So there's multiple things that they've done to direct attention. Directing attention without force moving the camera, which can make you sick. So they use spatial audio. And they use NPC behaviors. And I know I've said a lot. The ghosted controller teaches interactions without breaking you out of the experience. So like some games will stop the whole thing and show a pop-up that it breaks the game experience. And some of them, even more annoyingly, will show a pop-up but not stop the game. And so the pop-up's blocking what's happening, but the stuff that's happening is still happening. And so the pop-up is getting in the way of that. So you have to, it's distracting you from the game, and often it's in the middle of a combat situation when this is happening to me in a game, and I can't remember specifically. I think Final Fantasy XIV does this sometimes. They'll pop it up and you'll be in the middle of combat or something, and there's this guide that's popped up and is blocking your view of stuff, and it's highly annoying because it can make you die, and that's completely unnecessary. So it's good that they're using things that don't break your immersion, that don't interfere with the experience, to teach you as you go. And the NPC, see, Quill acts out what to do at the beginning to give hints. But over time, and I noticed this recently when I was trying the game, over time, she gives less hints. So she gives you more obvious hints in the beginning, and then less and less as you progress in the game, because you, at that point, they've decided, well, you've learned enough to figure this out. However, at the point that I got stopped, the furthest I've gotten in the game, I haven't finished the game yet, is this one puzzle piece that I am going to end up having to just look up online because I can't figure it out, because apparently they didn't. Maybe they taught me everything I needed to know, but it's been a while since I played. So maybe if I played it from the beginning up to that point, I would be able to figure it out. But that's another thing. People don't always play a game from beginning to end. Sometimes they'll leave it and they'll come back later and they'll forget stuff. So it would be ideal if we had a way of giving them hints, depending on if there's some kind of logic that we can add in the game. If they haven't played the game in a while, give them hints again. But if they, or if they're sitting and they haven't moved in a while, give them a hint. And that's what she's doing at the beginning, but it slowly stops as the game progresses. That would be something that I would add to improvements. So that is but I'm gonna go ahead and add it because I'm thinking about it. If player hasn't played in a while, offer hints again. Further into game. And I don't know how you would do that without completely redoing the game. So I'm not saying for them to do that, but that's something that you would consider doing if you're making a new game, because that would be way too hard to retrofit, I think, because you'd have to animate Quill to do it because she's the one doing it. And so that's a lot of. So that would be if we were prioritizing things to do you want to prioritize your UX recommendations based on impact. And this would be one of those things that I don't think impact versus effort. You would do this exercise for impact versus effort, and this would be one of those things that is a high effort, medium to low impact. So it would not be high on the list of priorities. Depending. So if a lot of people got stuck at that point that I was getting stuck, then it would be a higher impact. So that would be something to research. So then that would be a next step that we would add, would be to how many players get stuck at certain points, because then that would help impact your priority. And let's see, what were some other good things? Quill's adorable. You want to protect her. I think that's a good thing. I don't like watching her fall in the water and drown. Let's see. I think they changed that. I think in the beginning, it would show that she died, but I think that it was like hurting. Like people were like, "No, it's like painful because she's so adorable and you don't want to kill her." So then that makes you not want to play, because anytime you mess up, you kill her, and that's terrible. So I think they changed it, and I think they changed it so now you'll see her come back up and she'll be wiping off water, or shaking off water now, which is okay. She got out of the water. She just she didn't drown. I think, but I'm not sure. I haven't had her fall in the water enough for any kind of death to happen. Hopefully that doesn't. But she can die. She can die in combat and stuff. So you don't want that to happen. But yeah, she's too cute. Some other good things. Let's see, we're low on time, so I have to continue on. So some thorns. I don't know how many thorns there were. Well, I hate seeing Quill die when I mess up. That's something. I don't know how you would fix that. Don't let her die. Let's see. I don't really have a lot of thorns. Let's see. If y'all are watching this on demand later or now, and you have any thorns, let me know some. I'm thinking, are there any thorns? Anything with the menu? Well, for some reason I'm thinking that there were at some point tooltips telling you how to jump and how to use the little sword to fight and hit things, but those things I don't see when I go back and play again at the beginning, and I don't know if it's because I just didn't completely like uninstall and reinstall the game so it doesn't know that I played it, or if it's assuming since I already played through that I remember. As I remember buttons for jumping and using the sword after a long period not playing. However, it does seem to be using it seems to be using mental models for PlayStation controllers for jumping and fighting. Maybe. Not sure. Because that would only be on the PlayStation, it wouldn't be on the other headsets. But so so the question, that would be a question. So that would be a green because it's a question. Are they assuming mental models of PlayStation controller? How would that translate? Does that translate to the other platforms? Don't know. I'd have to go back and play. I don't think it does. So then do they teach it there? So you can still connect the thoughts without having to write a dissertation by doing it visually, which is nice. I seriously can't think of any thorns. So here's a follow-up is, are they assuming that mental model of the controller? I hate seeing Quill die when I mess up. I don't know how you would fix that. I really don't. Is it worth fixing? I don't know. I would study. I mean, if anything, I would say, how are players reacting when Quill dies? Don't know. I don't know that it's a big deal. I really don't know. I mean, I'm still playing the game. I haven't stopped playing it. I'm not traumatized by it, but I don't know if there's like any kind of warning or anything on the game or anything for people that are more sensitive. I don't know, but you'd have to put that on all the games, and I think they do when that is the case. But I don't know that it's a big deal. she's cute and I don't want to see her die. But it's not really like traumatizing because I know it's a game. But that would be an example of a follow-up. I don't think they are, but you do need to think about in XR experiences that these are different. They're not the same as your 2D games because you're immersed in it. So the psychological impact of things carries over more so in real life to XR than it does to 2D games. So you want to take into account trauma, things like that in XR experiences, and be sensitive to that. And I would just say I'm not saying don't do those things. I'm saying you would have to have some kind of warning in place saying, hey, this could cause if you have a phobia of such and such, you might not want to play it, or be careful when you play it, and so forth. Because like heights, fear of large spaces, fear of small spaces, all kinds of phobias, they do carry over into XR because it's scaled and it's. But that doesn't have anything to do with this game. That's just something that brought it up. So embodiment, motion, I really. If y'all have anything that didn't work well in there, I can't think of anything, and I am running out of time here. So translating it to XR, that's something that we do here. Motion sickness is the biggest thing for platformers. And for XR. Experiences. Moss handles it very well. This is how they that was another thing. How they handle occlusion of character of Quill by X-ray. It's kind of an X-ray vision instead of panning the camera. I wish they did that in 2D games, really. It's on the platformers specifically, or let me control the camera. Let me have more control over the camera than I do in platformers, because it makes me sick when they move you with the camera. That's a good thing. That's where's motion is handled. The Quill the camera is not attached to Quill. We stay in one place. Stable. Which is very key to XR. Okay. And let's see what else we have covered in previous talks. The previous session, we talked about XR a lot, and so I would say go watch that one again to learn more about translating. Because apologize, but I have to go soon. This is already an XR game, so there's less to talk about here. How would we translate these lessons to XR? How would we make this an XR game? We've already talked about it because it's already an XR game. This is more of an exercise that we would do for 2D than for existing XR. And so you can go back and watch some of the 2D games, platformers, to see what I talked about for translating those into XR. And I guess that is all we have for today, because unfortunately I do have to go. But this is, in my opinion, the Moss is the most excellent platformer out there. They have done such a great job and paid so much attention to detail on the motion sickness, how they handle like onboarding, how they handle teaching you and showing you through the game, the difficulty curve, the story, everything is excellent. And so if you were going to study how to translate a platformer into VR, I would say this is one that you absolutely must study, is Moss. And we're going to study another one next week. I haven't played it a whole lot, but what I've seen so far is good. Oh, the scene transitions. That's something else to mention. Scene transitions. Or fade out, fade in. No panning. No sickness. So this one is one that I've studied a lot for best practices. So I would say if you have to get one game this year, you can't get any more, get this one, or I would say we'll start with this one. If you've already played this one, then get the second one because it's out now. But that is all we have time for today. If you like these streams and you want to continue to see them and help me, I need funding to buy the games. I need funding to be able to continue doing this because life requires money and this research requires funding. So if you want to support me, you can do that. If you don't have funds, you can like, subscribe, follow, share. Those are all free things that you can do. But if you have funding, you can buy merch. You can, this is a hoodie that is available on that store. I will be adding more merch in the future. The cup is off right now because it came out blurry, so I need to fix it. But it'll be back up as soon as I get take the time to fix it. And I'm also wanting to add more merch in the future. I really, really want a beanie. I want a beanie hat. So I'm going to try to get that available in the future. But other ways are to become a patron, or if you want me to play a game, you can get one. I have a Steam wish list. But early, if you become a patron, you get exclusive content. You can buy tier, you'll get early access to videos that I create, the educational videos that I put out, and you'll get exclusive content. You'll get full access to the pattern library. I do have patterns that are free, but the full pattern library is available if you're a certain tier on Patreon, and there will be more benefits in the future, like Q&A sessions and stuff that are patron only and things like that as I get more patrons. I have a goal right now of if I can get $100 a month of patron funding, then I'm going to add a patron-only Q&A hangout in my Discord. So if you want to support this and you want to see more stuff like this, then funding is important. Or if you don't have funding, again, like, subscribe, share. Either way, like, subscribe, share, follow, all the things on YouTube and here on Twitch, and that will help me out greatly to continue doing this work to help you guys transition into this space and learn more about it. So that is it for today. Thanks again, and I will see you next week as we do Ghost Giant, and that will be our last VR platformer in this series that we're doing right now. So I will see you then. Thanks.